What up, fam? It's your boy, Son of Boy 2024, streaming to you live. Yeah, I know I'm late to this one. This video is long overdue, but I saw A24's indie horror hit Backrooms. I've actually seen it twice now. I wanted to see it a second time to kind of digest everything. There's a lot going on in the movie, and I feel like this is one of those, like all like good horror movies, like say the Blair Witch Project. I think a lot of horror movies, the good horror movies, benefit from you seeing them more than once, so you can really take in the finer detail. You know, Sixth Sense is another example. That movie benefits from you watching it twice. I definitely wanted to see this movie a second time, and I'm glad I did. And I'm glad I had the opportunity to, because this movie, along with Obsession, we've had two amazing indie horror hits recently that have just been killing it at the box office. I mean, this movie, Backrooms, King Parsons, originally a YouTuber, he made these like YouTube shorts and stuff. His movie was made for, I think, $10 million, and he's already made like $300 million at the box office. It's insane. It's insane. He is making bank right now. I'll give my thoughts on the movie in a moment. Let me do a quick spoiler warning. I mean, again, the movie's been out for a bit. I've seen it twice. I'm going balls deep into spoilers, so you know, there's your little warning. Sorry if you still haven't seen it yet, go out and see it. I mean, yeah, do I recommend the movie? Hell yeah, I recommend it. What I wanted to do real quick, I have to address some of the reviews I've been seeing about the movie, which are very interesting to me. Again, comparing real quick, Obsession and Backrooms. Obsession, it's interesting to me how Obsession, the critic score and the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes are almost identical. Everyone loves this movie. It's blowing up. Critics and audiences are hand in hand. However, in the case of Backrooms, critics really like it as well. But the audience, I think the Rotten Tomatoes is like 88% critics, but then the audience score compared to like, you know, the Obsession audience score, which is like 94%, the Backrooms audience score, it's like, 70%, like around 70%. And I looked at some of these reviews, and I copy pasted a few, just the ones that kind of got a reaction out of me. I just wanted to share those real quick. And then I'll kind of go in. I'll try and keep my commentary to a minimum, and then I'll go into my own thoughts. But I found it interesting how people are reacting a bit differently to this movie, and I wonder why. You know, what's different about Obsession? Excuse me, what's different about Backrooms versus Obsession? That type of dealio. But yeah, for example, we got this guy Robert. He gave it, and on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience scored it's out of 5 stars. So, for example, Robert, 3 out of 5. Weird movie. Not happy with the ending. Nev, 3 out of 5. Oh, Nev Campbell. I mean, it has to be Nev Campbell from Scream 7. She's just mad that the movie made more money than Scream 7. I don't get what's the hype all about. There was a ton of hype going into the movie. I think that maybe perhaps, you know, audience expectations were built up too much, something like that. Yeah, Nev's definitely, I mean, how many Nevs do you know? There's got to be Nev Campbell from Scream 7. She's mad that the movie, you know, made more money than her movie at the box office. That's actually true. Scream 7 pulled in 200-something million, but Backrooms has surpassed it. Backrooms is at 300 mil, which is crazy. It beat the 7th entry in a long-running franchise, this little indie movie by A24. And A24 movies usually don't stay in the theater very long, but this one has legs. This one's still in the theater weeks later. That's crazy. That's crazy for an A24. Deborah L. I like the 0.5 out of 5 stars. Awful. Can I get my 2 hours back, please? Really? Wow. And then Rachel. That's a weird way to spell Rachel. 2.5 out of 5. A little strange, and the ending didn't make much sense. Well, you know, the way you spell your name, Rachel, doesn't make much sense. So there you go. A little strange. Yeah, so people seem to have issues with the ending in particular. A little strange, and the ending didn't make much sense. Jose, 3 out of 5. It's a good but very weird movie. Drags on too long. N, 2.5 out of 5, was all right, but Obsession was way better. Yeah, I'm glad I found one kind of confirming audiences seem to like Obsession a lot better. Sean M, 0.5 out of 5. Trash. Movie made no sense at all. What? Okay. How do you give this 0.5? Like, come on. Sunshine, 0.5. One of the most confusing, pointless movies I've ever seen. The end. The end was totally abrupt and meaningless. My husband had described it as horrible. Wow. Kimberly, 1 out of 5. Lackluster, empty, devoid of substance and tone. Really? Devoid of tone? Devoid of substance? What? Okay, Laura Z, 1 out of 5. Please do not watch this movie. You won't get your time back. It's slow. They try too hard. There's nothing horror. What, Laura Z? Are you? You know, what are you talking about? I'll agree that it is kind of a slow movie. It's a slow burn. They try too hard. I don't know what you mean by that. There's nothing horror. Like, I thought this was a very scary movie. Okay, so what are we seeing here? Yeah, a lot of people are saying it's too slow moving. I'm, you know, it's fine. Everyone has their own opinion. You know, just because I like a movie doesn't mean you have to like a movie. But a lot of the stuff I'm reading, yeah, confusing, pointless. End was totally abrupt and meaningless. Horrible. You know, I just, did we watch the same movie, Sunshine? Like, did we watch the same movie? I just can't believe anyone would like really hate this movie. Like, you know, 0.5 out of 5. Like, really? This is a great horror film, especially for like an indie filmmaker. Like, especially first time indie film. You know, this guy came from YouTube. Like, this is his first film. You know, A24 gave him a chance. They gave him the money and the backing and the, you know, the mentorship and everything. And, you know, I think he knocked it out of the park for a first time movie, personally. Wow. Yeah. And again, people seem to prefer Obsession. That'll be a future video. I wanted to watch, just like Backrooms, I wanted to watch Obsession twice before I kind of went into that in a video. But I'll say this real quick, comparing the two. I don't really, and I understand why people are comparing them, because they're both, you know, indie breakout success hits in the horror genre. They both released like within a week of each other. To me, they're apples and oranges. It's like I might prefer one over the other, but I don't necessarily think one is just like objectively better. Personally, yeah, I think I liked Obsession a little bit more. Just, you know, just a tad. And then if you look at the Rotten Tomatoes, it is like a little higher than Backrooms. But both are very scary horror movies. I think both are great films. Both are very well acted, well written, you know, well shot. You know, success stories for the indie filmmakers, and that always gives like a little bonus point for me when it's like an indie creator success story. I'm like, oh, I'll bump it. You know, like, hey, this. They were working with very limited budget, very limited means. Freaking Obsession was made for like less than $1 million, I think, and that movie looks great. But yeah, like, let's go into this. So with Backrooms, I feel like people knew about this way before me. I'm late to the game. I didn't know about any of the YouTube shorts and shit. Like, now I'm like just now going into those, like both on King Parsons' channel and as well as like other shorts that I found. But yeah, this Backrooms concept, I knew nothing about it. People like on TikTok and people on the internet and people in real life, people like younger people were like talking to me. They were like, "Hey, do you know about this Backrooms movie? This like indie horror movie that's coming out like and they knew about this months in advance, before I think there was even a trailer. People were asking me like, "Oh, you know Backrooms? Like, you know, you gonna see that Backrooms movie that's coming out this year?" I'm like, "What? Like, I don't know anything. I like barely knew about Obsession. I was like, I don't know anything about this. Like, what are you talking about?" So like, there was a very strong like viral marketing campaign, and again, you see the box office, like everyone went out to go see this movie. So it definitely struck a chord with people. So that's what's funny to me, is like people who don't like it, I mean, they you know, it's not like people aren't seeing it. People are seeing it, they're just not liking it or something. And it's like, but I can only assume that those people who are going to see it have seen the YouTube shorts, which are very similar as far as like, you know, oh, it's slow, or it's boring, or it's not scary. I mean, the YouTube shorts had the exact same pace. They had the exact same type of scares. So I don't know. I just can't imagine someone seeing those shorts and then going to see the movie and being like disappointed, like, or being, you know, underwhelmed, like, oh, you didn't, you know, I was sold on something totally different. It's like, no, like, this is exactly what they sold you on. So I can't imagine it's those people that are the ones writing these reviews. It has to be like other people who like myself were not familiar with Backrooms concept at all, and they got hyped up because everyone's seeing it. It's, you know, it's blowing up on the internet, and they go to see this movie like, oh, Backrooms, what's this all about? And then they're just like disappointed or whatever. Yeah, I couldn't disagree more. I don't know. I feel like this is like a Longlegs situation. If you guys remember when Longlegs came out, that was a similar like big viral, you know, breakout success. Everyone was talking about it on TikTok, and all these young people went to go see it. And I thought Longlegs was a very fucking scary movie. But a lot of people I talked to were like kind of disappointed by it. They're like, "Oh no, it was boring, or wasn't that scary?" I'm like, "Really, really?" It was overhyped. I'm like, "Really?" I'm seeing a similar thing here with Backrooms. I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, I personally I prefer a slow burn type of movie, but I can see, I guess I can see people getting kind of bored with it. That's the one, and the concept itself is a bit, out there. It's a little complicated for a movie. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's confusing at all. I mean, I do, like I said, it makes more sense the second time you watch it. Like things kind of gel, things kind of click for you in your brain a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was confusing, but I will say, comparing it to Obsession, I can understand how Obsession has like a more straightforward premise. It has a more straightforward plot, and it has a quicker pace. Like in Obsession, something is always kind of happening. So as far as audience engagement, I guess I can understand that. With Backrooms, yeah, again, it's kind of a slow burn. There are scenes of like the research scientists or Clark, doing research and, exploring the back rooms. But I mean, I thought that was the best part of the movie. Just because there isn't like a jump scare or no one's dying, that doesn't mean the movie's boring. I guess it does for certain audiences. But yeah, no, I never thought it was boring, even when it was quote unquote slow in some parts. But again, yeah, I gave the spoiler warning. I'm going to kind of talk about the whole movie. So again, my TLDR is please go see it. Make up your own opinion. I can't guarantee you'll love it. Like I said, some audience members are not liking it, but it is blowing up enough where I think most people are at least willing to give it a try. Even though this might be their first A24 horror film, this ain't my first rodeo, like I'm used to weird experimental indie horror films from A24. Like that's kind of their bread and butter. This is definitely their most successful one by far. Their previous biggest hit was Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was not even a horror movie, but that was A24's like big box office hit. Backrooms has surpassed it. Again, it's 300 mil. So yeah, it's surpassed even Michelle Yeoh's movie. Okay. So Backrooms. What is it even about? So the Backrooms concept is this. It's this extra dimensional, plane, and you find like a doorway to it, and it's just a series of rooms. It looks like these abandoned office building rooms. And this whole idea of like liminal spaces or whatever, and how those by themselves can be kind of spooky or scary. If you've ever like wandered like an empty store or an empty warehouse at night, it's just scary. It's just kind of like corridors that seem to go on forever. It's like you walked into what's it called? An MC Escher painting. The one with like the stairs that just like go up and down and sideways, and none of it makes any sense. It's like that. You like wandered into one of those paintings. I really like the film because I appreciate like the surreal artwork type of visual. Like the visuals are very interesting. Like they built real sets and everything for this. But yeah, we have our protagonist Clark, and he's kind of I think that's where some people might have a reaction where they're saying like, oh well, he's not the most likable protag, and it's like, yeah, no, he's not. But he's an interesting character, and we explore his character. We explore both of the main characters, their psychological stuff going on. I thought that was very interesting. But like, again, it requires a little more deeper thought and analysis, which maybe some audience members aren't willing to do. Obsession is very much more straightforward with like the scares and the premise and everything. So I guess that's why it's resonating with audiences a bit more. I can't really speak to that. I'm just like I love both movies, and I really kind of ponder and question like why one's getting such a different reaction from audiences. But anyway, so Clark's kind of like going through a rough patch in his life. I mean, he's seeing a therapist about all of his problems, and she becomes a main character in her own right, which I really enjoyed. I kind of wasn't expecting. I thought the movie was like just about Clark, but it's not. And then there's actually a third character, the scientist character, who works for what's it called, Async or whatever. I thought he was going to turn out to be like another main character, but he's only in the movie like sporadically. In fact, I would forget about him until he like would suddenly pop up. But it's mainly about the two. It's about Clark, and it's about his therapist Mary. And again, these are characters totally created for the movie version. So again, like in the shorts, I wouldn't say there was really like a main character per se, and like so that's what I thought they added a lot character wise for the movie version. So again, I was very satisfied with what they did for the movie. I can't imagine someone watching those shorts and then watching the movie and being like, oh, what the hell, like, you know, what's this crap, you know? It's like, I'm so disappointed. Yeah, so Clark, you know, he's seeing a therapist because his wife basically left him or kicked him out of the house. He's got all sorts of problems. He's a failed architect. He wanted to be an architect, but he ended up, you know, having to get like a 9-to-5 job that he hates. He's a furniture salesman at the Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire or whatever. And his business sucks. Like, you know, his business is struggling. Like, there's a lot of like visual language in the movie. Like, you know, we don't need to like really hammer it home, but you see like all of the overdue rent bills and stuff piling up on his desk. There's a great moment that I really like where he films like this cheesy, horrible Captain Clark commercial. And then like right after that, you know, and there's like it's like a fiasco. Like, he films it and he's like, you know, got the stupid peg leg and he's dressed like a pirate and he like sits down on one of his crappy Ottoman chairs and it breaks and he like his peg leg breaks and he falls down flat on his ass, and his two employees that are filming the video, they basically laugh at him. And he's like, all right, shut off the fucking camera. And they're like, no, this is good. This is good for outtakes. He's like, shut off the fucking camera. He's just so embarrassed. He's so embarrassing. He's wearing this stupid, you know, costume. He's for this job that he hates. And then he says, he's like, okay, Kat, you know, you can open up the store now. We're done filming. And she's like, you know, we've been open. I didn't close the store. You know, the store is just empty because his store is like a joke. And there's like another scene where he opens up the store and someone like graffitied like rip off, you know, or whatever, con artist or rip off artist on the one window. So it's like, yeah, he's a complete joke. He's a complete joke. He clearly hates himself. He hates his life, the direction his life took. And he's also like a struggling alcoholic, and I think his wife basically threw him out of the house because of that. And so he talks about it in the therapy sessions how, like, you know, it's his house, like he's paying for it, but his wife didn't just leave him. His wife kicked him out of his house, which he's still paying for. He's still paying for her to go to school, or she's like on leave from law school, so he's like paying for her to not go to school. And there's a great scene where he's like, they show him like in a bed and he's like watching TV, and then he suddenly like gets up and the camera, I like those like visual reveals where it's like the camera pans back and shows like he's sleeping on one of his beds in his store. Like, he lives in the store now because his wife kicked him out of his house and he has nowhere to go. So he just really, you know, everything about it is just kind of miserable. As far, so like he's, you know, he's a maybe not the most likable guy, but he's a very interesting character to explore. And it reminded me, and I saw like one review on like one of the positive reviews on Rotten Tomatoes that I liked, where it was saying like, you know, this is the good Silent Hill movie we've been waiting for, and it is very Silent Hill-ish. I think fans of Silent Hill will like this movie a lot because, again, those games are known for having, you know, atypical or not super sympathetic protagonists with all sorts of, you know, flaws and problems. And the town of Silent Hill, much like Backrooms, it'll manifest these you know, psychological problems. Like the monsters in these worlds kind of have a relation to the main character, and that's the part about it that I really liked. And it might take some, like, you know, a little more effort mentally from like the audience to get it, but like not that much. Like, I didn't think this movie was confusing at all, and we'll get to the ending, but like, yeah, I thought the monsters made sense. I thought that whole thing was explained pretty well. I mean, you know, again, were you paying attention? Were you scrolling through your phone? Were you scrolling through TikTok? Were you scrolling through your phone instead of watching the movie? Dude, did you fall asleep because, you know, there wasn't a jump scare for every 5 minutes? Like, you know, if that's, you know, go see Paranormal Activity, go see Insidious. Like, if those are the type of horror movies you like, go see Five Nights at Freddy's. You know, this isn't that type of horror movie. It's more of a slow burn, but that's kind of the type of movie I prefer anyway. But yeah, so we have Clark. We also have Mary, his therapist. Actually, let me say a couple things real quick. before I get into Mary. So one thing I like about the movie is people pointed out. I didn't even like notice this on my first watch through, which is crazy. But people pointed out how like this movie, it's a period piece. It's set in the early '90s, and we know this from like security cam footage. Like there's like a tape at the beginning where like a scientist gets sucked into the back rooms, and it shows like whatever 1990 or 91 or something. So like I didn't even notice that. And you notice like later on when they have like the recording camera equipment, like Clark gets his two employees to like film him exploring the back rooms, and they have this like giant ass 90s video camera, and so like yeah, it's clearly set in a different time, but it was done so subtly and so well I didn't even notice. Like it could have been any time period. If this is like the Stranger Things mentality, like Stranger Things, they'll like. It's not just set in the 80s. Like there's just constant like Rubik's Cube, 80s band, 80s reference, 80s reference. Parachute pants. They just like they smash you over the head with it. They just want you to really know it's set in the 80s. With Backrooms, they're like, yeah, I mean it's set in the 90s. We don't have to like throw constant blockbuster references or it's like it's subtle about it, which I appreciate. So there's that. What else did I want to say? Oh yeah. So as far as like my criticism or like my flaw, I didn't really, I like the movie a lot. As far as like something that I wish they'd done a little different. Yeah, I mean, so the scientist character who really kind of pops up at the end, who works for Async or whatever. I thought he could have been a little bit more of a main character, maybe cut back to him like a little bit, because again, he just kind of, you forget about him until he like pops back in and you're like, oh right, this guy, I thought we could have done a little more with him. And for me personally, I went into this thinking that it would be entirely a found footage movie, and I'm someone that really likes the found footage movies. Like I like Paranormal Activity, I like Blair Witch Project, I like all those movies where the whole movie is just like security cam footage or camcorder footage. And I wish they'd like, I mean, it would have required some edits to the script, but like maybe like with the therapy sessions, like maybe Mary Klein videotapes her therapy sessions for like research purposes or something, like, and you could have had like a static camera shot while she's talking to Clark. I don't know, but I think that would have worked. I think I would have liked the movie a little bit better if the entire thing was recorded footage, because I thought those moments worked the best. Like the very first, I mean, the way the movie opens, it's a recording from the scientist like that's like infiltrating the back rooms, and I was hoping the whole movie would be like that. And when Clark explores the back rooms, he gets Kat, his assistant manager, and her boyfriend Bobby has like the recording camera that he like rented from the school or whatever, and you see all that footage. And I thought that because the movie, quite frankly, even though the sets are very well done, they're very beautiful, I like all the sets, the effects aren't the best, but that's where I think it would have benefited from being a found footage format, where one of the best shots, in my opinion, when they first enter the back rooms, they Clark finds this like slit in the wall in his furniture store, and they just go through the invisible doorway. So when Bobby's recording and Kat steps through the wall, it's honestly not a great effect, but because it's from the viewpoint of this like 90s camcorder, and like there's like static and everything, it helps kind of hide the fact that it's not a great effect. So I thought that shot was very, very effective, and I thought the whole movie would have benefited from being from that camcorder footage. The main monster at the end, I think that's where a lot of people are getting divided on this monster. Like I talked to some friends that saw the movie, and they thought the monster was goofy. So some people don't like the giant pirate monster. I thought it was well done, and I thought it made a lot of sense in connection to Clark. And the movie does this smartly, where you very rarely see the full creature in full profile. I think that's a smart decision because, again, honestly, the effect isn't great. But like the movie does a very good job of, he's always constantly like either in shadow or just creeping behind a corner, or you don't get a great look at him, or especially at his face, you'll see like him in the far distance chasing someone. Like they do a very good job at that. And as far as like the monster, I think people just didn't get it, because I heard people in my theater laughing when the pirate showed up, and it's like, the monsters have a connection to Clark, or they represent someone somewhere in the real world. When you go to the Backrooms, it's kind of like the Upside Down. It's like a twisted version of our reality or whatever. But like the monster, it represented Clark, but it was a part of him, and it was basically like his greatest fear, which is that, like going back to that moment when he filmed that embarrassing commercial, like his own self-hatred, his own self-loathing. He hates what he's become. His greatest fear is that he's a joke. He's not an architect. He's just the goofy pirate captain filming that embarrassing commercial, falling on his ass while his employees laugh at him. And so the monster in the movie is this like Jungian shadow. It's him, but it's like distorted. It's like this giant, grotesque, version of him as the pirate captain, lumbering around on his peg leg, crashing into stuff. And I thought that was very effective. And when you go to the Backrooms, the way I took it, again, this is open to interpretation. This is just my thoughts. This is how I took it. But I think you basically enter your own personal hell, or you encounter your greatest fears. So Clark, as an architect, is someone who approaches these back rooms, and he's trying to rationalize. He literally, the first thing he does is he gets out his graph paper. He's trying to map it. And it's not a place of logic. It's not a place where every staircase goes somewhere, every door leads to something, leads to a different room. It's not like that at all. So it's a fool's errand, but he's trying to study it. He's trying to map it. He's trying to, research it. And that's the same folly that the scientists make from Async. Like they're trying to like apply logic and reason to a place. They're trying to map it out too and understand it. But it's not something that can be understood. It's not a place of reason or logic. You know what I mean? And then that was the other thing I found really interesting, is we have these three people kind of approaching it from three different angles. You have Clark is the mathematician type of person, trying to, reason it out. And then you have the Async people looking at it from a scientist point of view. They're trying to research it as well, blah, blah, blah. And then you have Mary approaching it from like the psychological or the emotional angle. And all these people are trying to understand a place that really isn't meant to be understood. It's a place of anti-logic, you know what I mean? But that was interesting to me. The three different approaches. Mary. So let's go into Mary. So Mary, she has her own baggage, despite being a therapist. I mean, she's kind of a failure herself in her own way, where she has all this baggage, where we get cuts back to her childhood, in which she can't escape. I think this whole movie is about not being able to move on, not being able to escape the past, because Clark, for example, he just can't get over this one argument he had with his wife the night she threw him out. That's something that he constantly returns to in therapy sessions with his therapist, as well as later in the movie he returns to it as well. But Mary herself, she grew up in a house with kind of a crazy mother. Who was agoraphobic, wouldn't let her leave the house, and was later institutionalized. And Mary literally carries this like cement handprint that she took of her old home. She carries it with her all the time. It's on her desk in her therapy office. We see her eating a TV dinner with it right next to her, and then much later in the film we see that she took it with her into the Backrooms even. So she can't fucking move on either. Like, she's stuck in the past as well. For constantly thinking about her childhood home. I think the entire reason she became a therapist in the first place was because her own mother had mental illness and like was institutionalized, and so she wants to help people like her mother. But she's a failure as well. At least the little bit we see. I mean, we see her at her apartment. She lives in a shitty apartment, eating a TV dinner, watching TV, and she sees her little commercial. So both of them, they have a lot in common, Mary and Clark. Mary actually has her own like little embarrassing commercial where she's talking about like, oh, I have, here's Dr. Mary Klein's like books on tape. It'll change your life, blah, blah, blah. Call this 1-800 number. And it's like, she's that type of therapist where like, she's just, doing stuff like that to get by. And she's not super successful, obviously, or else she would probably live in a better home. But whatchamacallit. But yeah, so she and her therapy sessions with Clark really aren't, she's just trying to help him, but she's not really succeeding so far. And like I said, the Backrooms, when you go there, I feel like you are confronted with like your worst fear, your worst nightmare. And in Clark's case, it was, the fact that like maybe I'm a joke, maybe everyone is laughing at me, maybe I am just this grotesque pirate captain version of the person that I really want to be. I will say this, when Mary gets to the back rooms and she sees like this really creepy mural, this is where I'm gonna, like, when I get it on DVD, I'm gonna like cycle through, like really, go through the movie and like, pause and still frame, because I want to see that whole mural, like all the stuff that was written there. But I will say this, that first illustration of the pirate captain, like, and he's like picking up what looks like a child, like throwing him up in the air and catching him, that was so much creepier, like that was so much scarier to me than when the pirate captain himself actually shows up. So like I could see people like, oh, you were hyped up because of that image, and then when the pirate CGI thing shows up, you're like, oh, this isn't as scary as the other thing. I can kind of see that, but I thought the monster had that interesting connection to the main character. What he represented was interesting. Whatchamacallit. But yeah, one flaw, not even a flaw, but one little hiccup for me, like something that I didn't totally get, was, so Clark goes there and he gets his two students, or excuse me, his two student employees or whatever to come with him, and they're captured. They are stuck in the back rooms. And at this point, Mary, I thought that she would get involved in like a different way. Like I thought maybe she would just like say, hey, that's weird that he hasn't showed up to therapy sessions for like a couple weeks, and then she goes to investigate or whatever. But she gets a phone call. She gets a call on her answering machine from Clark saying like, don't, ironically he's like, don't come looking for me. So of course she's going to, but like I don't know how he was able to call her from the back rooms. And I don't know why he would call her. Like, I don't. Again, it only makes sense in the context of like, well, we need Mary to go in after him, so he'll call her and get her to come after him. But it's like, why would he? What? Yeah, like, why would he do that? Like, I don't know. That was like the one little strange thing where I'm like, okay, that maybe could have used a little tweaking. Maybe we could have done that a little differently, but whatever. But yeah, Mary pursues him, because he's been captured and kind of like absorbed by the back room. So now it's Mary's turn as the protagonist to like go in after him and try and rescue him. But with Mary, again, this is the way I took it. I think she was confronted with her own worst fear, her own worst nightmare. And this is a callback to an earlier scene, like an earlier therapy session, where Clark shows her, the map that he's drawn of the back rooms, or he's attempted to, but he sees that she's looking at him like he's crazy, and he asks her, I forget exactly what he says, but he says something like, have you ever had to like call this number, like 2050 or something? Have you ever had to like 2050 a patient? And what I assume he meant is like, oh, something really bad happened, or the patient became dangerous or hostile, and I had to call whatever, like the hospital or the police or something. And she says like, yeah, I have a couple of times. And he's like, well, why? And she's like, well, when they present a threat to themselves or a threat to me, something like that. And so I think that's her ultimate fear, is that she can't help him, that she can't help anyone. And that she, her in her mind, probably, right, her ultimate failure would be if her patient committed suicide or did something that violent or drastic, and just she was not able to help them or prevent this thing from happening. And literally what happens with Clark, when he captures her in the back rooms, ties her to the chair and everything, they have another therapy session, but this time, and I like that, how he flips it, where he wanted to be in control now, because in the other therapy session they do the role playing exercise, and she kind of forces it upon him. He doesn't want to do it, and she's like, no, like, I'll pretend to be your wife from that night, you be you, and we'll have that argument. So I like how in this case he captures her and he flips it. He's like, and she doesn't want to do it. She's like, this isn't the time or the place. He's like, no, like, we're gonna do it. Like, I want to be me, you're gonna be my wife, and like, let me put on this like wig on you, blah, blah. And so like, I like how he kind of flipped the power dynamic. But yeah, she breaks down and she says, fuck you, and he's like, wait, what? And she's like, you want to know what your wife was? It's a great scene. Like, the actress who played Mary Klein, she's very good. I can't pronounce his name, but Chiteo Ejiofor. He was the villain from Serenity. He's very, very good as Clark. But yeah, she at first they have the therapy session. She tries to help him, but she has a moment and like she kind of breaks down. She's like, you know what, fuck you. Like I can't help you. Like, and she like just goes in. She starts laying into him, and she's like, you know what, like. I know why your wife left you. It's not because of the drinking. It's because you can't fucking take responsibility. Everything is always everyone else's fault. And he's like, what? he's like, what? How could you talk to me like this? He's like so taken aback. He's like, you can't talk to me like this. I'm your patient. He's just like, you're saying it's my fault. She's like, yeah, it is your fault. Like, oh my God, like, stop blaming everyone else. It's just how you're wired. Like, you can't help it, right? And you don't have to. I'm asking you to change, but you saying you can't change. And fine, you don't have to change. Let me go. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's going to let her go, but what happens is the pirate monster shows up, it grabs Clark, and it bites his head off. It kills him. And that I took to be, literally he's committing suicide. Like a version of him is killing him. And Mary Klein was not able to prevent that. And I think that was her being confronted with her own nightmare in which, hey, I'm trying so hard to help my patient and I can't help him. I don't know what to do. And he does something drastic. He does something I would have had to call that number for. He tries to take his own life, or he does take his own life, and I couldn't stop it. So like that to me was like Mary's personal hell. She had to see that again. She's probably seen it before. She's alluded to that. She's probably seen it more than once. But yeah, and Clark, another thing that I took, I feel like Clark, he ropes in Kat, his assistant manager, and her boyfriend Bobby to like film, him exploring the backrooms and everything. And I feel like the monster, it was either Clark himself or the monster killed both of them, because we see Kat's head in the fridge, and we don't see Bobby at all, but like we're pretty sure he's dead as well. And in fact, one of the best quick shots I thought was you see Bobby his bloody body being pulled through this vent by something, and the vent suddenly closes. Like, I thought that was such an effective, scary shot. Again, I thought the movie was very effective. I thought it was very scary, but that's my opinion. But yeah, I think this was Clark's revenge, because remember, his lowest point was when he was dressed up as the goofy captain filming the stupid commercial, and he falls down, and his two employees, these two kids, Kat and her boyfriend Bobby, they're just laughing at him. So what does he do? Well, he lures them to the back rooms, and then either him or a version of him, the pirate monster, kills those two kids who made him a laughing stock. And I think there's some really disturbing implications where, remember, what does he say at the dinner table? He like cuts open the one creature, and he's like, oh, you can eat them, and they'd explain, like, because he's been down there for weeks and weeks, I think. We don't know exactly how long, but when Mary goes to the store, she sees like all these past due bills and stuff, like they've been piling up at the door. So he's been gone quite a while. And so how's he been living? Well, he's been either eating the humanoid creatures down there, or he's been, I think it's implied that he's been eating Kat and Bobby, because again, you find Kat's severed head in the fridge, for crying out loud. And then, so that's cannibalism right there. And then, yeah, literally the shadow monster version of him commits cannibalism by eating himself, by eating Clark. And another really effective part of that scene, so, and this, it's a subtle detail that I picked up on the second time, but, okay. Yeah, rewind for a second. So one description I really like in the movie, and they say it twice, because Clark says it first and then Mary repeats it later. But the way they describe everything in the backrooms, especially the people down there, because they're fucked up people, humanoid things down there, but they're like bad photocopies. So like Clark says, like, imagine if you described a dog to someone who had never seen a dog, and then you asked them to draw the dog. They might get some details right, but they're not going to get everything right. And from a far distance, like, yeah, it looks like a dog, but when you zoom in, you see like, oh, hey, the ears are in the wrong place, or it's missing a tail or whatever. And that's how the people are in the back rooms. It's like they're remembered people, but they're remembered a little wrong. Like, it's like a photocopy again and again and again, where it keeps getting, a little off, more and more off each time. Or like when you ask AI to make a picture of something, it's like it gets most of the details right, but when you like really zoom in, you start to notice, oh, this guy has, too many fingers on one hand, or something, something like that. So that's how all the people appear down there in the back rooms. And there's 3 in the room with him and Mary in that dinner table scene. And Clark, he stabs the one guy, cuts him open. It's like, they don't feel anything. It's fine. They're you can eat them and they don't feel anything. And that's a total lie, because I like this detail a lot. There's the woman in the back with the red hair, and we see a very quick photo at one point in the movie of him and his wife, and yeah, his wife was a redhead. So that's why it's a very disturbing moment, but he like runs over to the woman, he scalps her, he cuts her hair off, and uses that as a wig to put on Mary so that she can role play the wife. And throughout that whole action, like he's cutting her scalp off, the Backrooms woman has no reaction, just like you said. They don't feel anything. She's just standing there letting it happen, has no reaction to that, right? But then as soon as the pirate captain shows up or starts to like walk over there, you hear his footsteps. Then she takes off like a bullet. She runs to the other end of the room, starts banging on the wall, trying to escape, starts screaming bloody murder, screaming her head off. So it's like, obviously they do feel, and it was so telling that like all of his actions up to that point, she's not affected. She's just standing stock still. But what does she? She does fear what's coming. She does fear that pirate thing. And I thought that was so well done. That was such great build up to that monster. That there is something that scares these creatures, and it's not him, but it's the other him. So yeah, I thought that was masterfully done. Anything else? I can't think of anything else. I've rambled on long enough. Go see Backrooms. Sorry for spoiling the whole movie. But yeah, and then at the very end, she's captured and she is talking to the scientist, Peter, I think his name is, or no, Phil. And they don't really explain, like they have a quick explanation. It's like, hey, I work for Async, we're this company, we used to make MRI machines, but we discovered the Backrooms, blah, blah, blah. Now we spent all of our time researching it, but we still can't, map the whole place out. We spent all these resources, all this time. We still can't map out the whole place because it's not a place that can be mapped. It's not a place that can be understood in that way, in that 3D realm, logic way, you know what I mean? And then Mary's kind of like, so if I answer your questions, can I go? And he's like, well, that's not really up to me. I think Mary's stuck. I think she's basically there forever. And I don't know. I thought they gave a good enough explanation. I didn't want them to over-explain it because that kind of ruins it. So I was happy with what they did. And then the final shot, we do the Backrooms thing where we're, going down, the photocopy after photocopy, remembrance after remembrance. And they show like this interrogation room, and they show like a Mary's doppelganger, but she's all, messed up. She has like too many eyes or whatever. She's like sitting there in the chair. And I thought it was like a very haunting image to end on, seeing that like Backroomsified Mary in that interrogation room. I don't get how some people just didn't like the ending, or they were confused. They're like, oh, what happened to Mary? I'm like, no, that's not Mary. That's we've explained this. Everyone has a counterpart in the Backrooms. Like, were you not paying attention? Yeah, I liked the ending. I thought the ending shot was, like I said, very, very haunting and memorable and kind of spine tingling, and like it was a powerful image to end on. That's about it. So yeah, please go see Backrooms. I think it very much was worth the hype. Just go in knowing that it is a slow burn, and it's going to require a little bit of thought on your part as the audience, and maybe even a repeat viewing.